thought it would be funny. It started as a birthday joke from my younger brother, Miles. He handed me a DNA kit wrapped in tissue paper and grinned like he had just discovered fire. "Let's find out if you're secretly a Viking," he said. "Or maybe a Russian spy. Either way, I get the credit." We laughed. My mom, Lyra, playfully rolled her eyes. My dad, Grant, told Miles to stop feeding me conspiracy theories over breakfast. It was just one of those easy mornings, the kind that makes you feel like nothing could ever go wrong. I swabbed my cheek, sealed the envelope, and dropped it in the mailbox on my way to work. I teach 5th grade science. I've always been the type who likes answers. I like facts, data, evidence. The idea of learning about my ancestry sounded fun, like solving a mystery with no real consequences. I didn't know then that the mystery was me. A week later, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang while I was grading papers. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Is this Oven Blythe?" The voice was calm, female, professional. "Yes?" "This is from Gene Trace Labs. We need to verify something from your DNA results." "In person." "In person," I repeated. "Why?" There was a pause. Then the voice dropped just slightly, like she didn't want anyone else to hear what she was about to say. "Your DNA matched a missing child case from 1993. I froze. My pen slipped out of my hand and hit the floor. I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe they mixed up my test, maybe someone with the same name, a computer glitch. But the woman didn't sound unsure. She sounded careful, trained, and serious. She continued, "We've flagged this as a possible critical match. A child abducted from a home in Nebraska. The parents never stopped searching. The profile is still active in the national database." I sat there staring at the laminated volcano diagrams my students had drawn in crayon, trying to make sense of what she was saying. I wasn't missing. I wasn't abducted. I'd lived in the same house with the same family my entire life. I was safe. I was loved. This wasn't my story. When I got home that evening, I told my mom. We were in the kitchen. She was peeling carrots for soup. I said it casually at first, thinking she'd laugh it off with me. "Mom, something weird happened. The DNA company called. They said I matched a missing child from the 90s. She dropped the carrot. It hit the floor with a soft thud and her entire body went still. Her face drained of color. She looked straight at me like she was seeing a ghost. I asked her what was wrong. She didn't answer right away. She didn't pick up the carrot. She just stared, eyes wide, lips pressed together like she was trying to hold something back. Then her voice cracked. "You were never supposed to find out." My stomach flipped. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "Find out what?" She reached for the counter to steady herself. Her hands were shaking. She looked so small in that moment, so fragile, like the weight of whatever she was carrying had finally gotten too heavy. "You weren't adopted," she whispered. "We didn't go through an agency. There weren't any papers, no court, no records." I stared at her. "Then what? What does that mean?" Her eyes filled with tears. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize my face. "We found you," she said. That's when I stopped breathing. "You found me?" I said. "Where?" She didn't blink. Her voice broke again. "You were left in our driveway, in the middle of the night, wrapped in a blanket. You were 6 months old. And there was a note. It said one word." She took a breath that sounded like it hurt her. "Run." "My name is Oven Blythe. I'm 29 years old. I live in Loveland, Colorado, in a 2-bedroom house with a backyard full of wildflowers and a scruffy rescue dog named Clover. I've had the same best friend since middle school. I bake banana bread on Sundays, and I teach 5th grade science at Lincoln Elementary. My life is small, but it's full. It's mine. Or at least, I thought it was. Growing up, I had the kind of family people envied. My mom, Lyra, made handwritten lunch notes and lavender tea when I had a bad day. My dad, Grant, is the reason I know how to change a tire, calculate compound interest, and build a campfire in the rain. My younger brother, Miles, is 4 years younger than me, but acts like he's the older one. He's the funny one, the bold one, the one who talks to strangers and sings too loudly in the car. We weren't rich, we weren't perfect, but we were close. We had inside jokes and movie nights. When I scraped my knees, my mom kissed them. When I aced my SATs, my dad framed the score report. I never felt like I didn't belong. I had no reason to question anything about who I was. My birth certificate said Lyra and Grant Blythe. My baby pictures were on every shelf. My childhood was filled with memories that felt solid and real. Camping trips to Rocky Mountain National Park, science fairs, Christmas mornings with matching pajamas. So when Miles gave me the DNA kit for my birthday, I didn't hesitate. It felt like a quirky gift, a fun thing to do together. We joked about who might come back with Neanderthal genes. I swabbed my cheek and popped it in the mail. It didn't feel like a door. It felt like a toy. A few days later, we were sitting around the kitchen table, eating waffles and arguing about whether Pluto should still count as a planet. Miles was scrolling through his phone and said, "You think they'll find out you're descended from ancient royalty?" I laughed. "I'll settle for mildly interesting." Mom smiled from the stove. "You'll be interesting no matter what your DNA says." Dad grunted from behind his newspaper. "Long as it doesn't tell us she's related to politicians, we're good." We all laughed. It was a normal morning. I didn't know that was the last morning before everything changed. Even now, I keep thinking back to how ordinary it all was. The mugs on the table, the smell of maple syrup, the scrape of chair legs against wood. There was no thunder, no warning, just a phone call that cracked everything open. After I told my mom what the DNA company said, she fell apart so fast I barely recognized her. I had always seen her as gentle but strong, the kind of person who carries everyone else's pain without showing cracks. But that night, she crumbled in front of me. We sat in the kitchen for hours, neither of us saying much. She made tea she never drank. I asked the same question 3 different ways, trying to make it make sense. "You found me? What does that mean?" She wouldn't look me in the eye when she answered. "Your father and I woke up to a noise on the front porch. We thought it was raccoons. It wasn't. It was you." She said I was wrapped in a yellow flannel blanket. I was wearing a pink onesie, crying softly. There was a note pinned to the fabric. 1 word: run. My dad called the police. They came, took pictures, collected the note. But there were no reports of a missing baby, no witnesses, no car scene. No one came forward. Eventually, the case went cold. And my parents, if I can still call them that, were left with a decision. They didn't plan it. They didn't steal me. But they kept me. They never legally adopted me because there was no one to adopt me from. No file, no family, just me showing up like a ghost in the night. My mom said she kept waiting for someone to knock on the door. That first week, she didn't sleep. She kept me in her arms every second. She was terrified I would vanish just as quickly as I'd appeared. But no one ever came. The police said it could have been an abandoned baby, an illegal drop-off, maybe a scared teenage mother, maybe worse. They didn't have answers, and eventually they stopped asking questions. My mom and dad didn't. Instead, they gave me a name, a home, a family. They raised me like I was theirs because, to them, I was. For 29 years, that was my story. I was their daughter, full stop, no footnotes, no shadows. But now, that story was cracking. Now there were questions I couldn't ignore. Now there was a woman on the other end of the phone saying I might be someone else entirely, and the worst part? I wasn't sure if I wanted to know the truth or if I could live without it. The next morning, I called the number back. I needed to hear it again. I needed proof that I hadn't misheard, that I wasn't spiraling into some absurd daydream built on a dropped call and a cracked memory. "Gene Trace Labs, this is Dr. Kelsey Arden." Her voice was the same, calm, neutral, but not cold. "This is Avon Blythe," I said. "You called me yesterday about a DNA match." I waited for her to walk it back, to say it was a false alarm, to tell me the system glitched or that someone else's file had been opened by mistake. But she didn't. "Yes, Ms. Blythe, thank you for calling. I'd like to speak with you about your profile in person. This match is connected to a case flagged in our forensic partnership database. It's highly sensitive. We're asking you to come into our Denver office." "A case? What kind of case?" There was a pause, and then her voice lowered slightly. "A missing child report. The child disappeared in 1993 when she was 6 months old." I didn't know what to say. I stared at the coffee mug in my hand, the one that said, "World's okayest teacher," and felt my stomach flip. "I'm not a missing person," I said. "I've never been missing." "I understand this may be a shock. We're not saying you are. only that your DNA has produced a direct match to biological parents listed in the national system. We'd like to verify this match under supervision before any further steps are taken. I agreed to come in. I didn't know what else to do. When I hung up, I just sat there. My hands were cold. My head was spinning. I knew I had to tell someone, but I wasn't ready to go back to my mom yet. I wasn't sure what she could even tell me. She had already said it. You weren't adopted. We found you. I didn't know how to process that sentence. How does someone just get found? Like a backpack, like a stray dog, like a secret someone wanted to bury. I called Miles. He answered on the second ring. Hey, sis, find out your royalty yet? His voice was joking, but I couldn't match it. My voice cracked as I said his name. Avon? His tone changed instantly. What happened? I need to tell you something. It's serious. I told him everything. About the call, about the match, about the baby from 1993, about the note pinned to my blanket. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he said, I don't understand. How is that even possible? You're not adopted? Number they found me in our driveway. That doesn't make sense. None of it does. He took a breath. I'm coming over. 10 minutes later, he walked into my house without knocking. He dropped onto the couch, elbows on his knees, and stared at me. So this DNA company, he said, they think you're this baby who went missing 3 decades ago? They don't think. They said my DNA is a direct match to the parents. And Mom confirmed it? That you weren't adopted? She said they found me, that they called the police, but when no one came forward, they kept me. He didn't say anything. His jaw tightened. So what now? He asked. I have an appointment in Denver. They want to verify the match. He nodded slowly. You're not going alone. I expected him to argue, to panic, to tell me not to go, but he was already grabbing his jacket. We drove down the next morning. The silence between us was thick, but not tense. It felt like both of us were trying to hold on to the version of life we knew before it slipped away completely. The Gene Trace building looked more like a bank than a lab. Modern, glass-walled, clinical. Dr. Arden met us in the lobby. She was in her 40s, maybe early 50s. Her hair was pulled back. Her hands were still. She spoke with the precision of someone who had delivered devastating news before. We followed her into a small room with 2 chairs, a monitor, and a folder on the table. She explained everything clearly. In 1993, an infant named Aria Fenwick was taken from her home in Lincoln, Nebraska. There was no sign of forced entry, no ransom demand. Her parents never stopped searching. Their DNA has remained in the Federal Registry for Missing Persons for over 25 years. She opened the folder and handed me a photo. A baby, dark eyes, round face, wrapped in a yellow flannel blanket. I had that blanket in my keepsake chest. My mom always told me it was my first gift, that she kept it because I loved the texture. I felt my throat tighten. We ran your sample through 3 databases, Dr. Arden continued. You are a direct biological match to Monica and Jude Fenwick. 99.9% certainty. Miles leaned forward. So what does that mean for her? What happens now? Dr. Arden didn't answer right away. Instead, she asked if I wanted to initiate contact. They're still alive? I asked. Yes, she said. They've never stopped hoping you'd be found. I felt the room tilt. I thought of the woman who raised me, who kissed my forehead when I had fevers. I thought of this other woman waiting in another state, wondering if her daughter was dead or alive. Both stories couldn't be true, but somehow they were. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. My life would never go back to what it was before that phone call. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my back in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slowly above me. The silence in the room wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. My world had split open. Everything I knew about who I was had started to dissolve. I wasn't just Avon Blythe, science teacher, daughter, sister. I was also Aria Fenwick, the baby who vanished from her crib in Nebraska 29 years ago. I couldn't stop thinking about the woman in that photo, Monica Fenwick, my biological mother. Somewhere, she had been waiting, watching every birthday go by, wondering, hoping, grieving someone who had never really died. I also couldn't stop thinking about the woman who raised me, Lyra. The hands that braided my hair, the voice that soothed my nightmares. She wasn't perfect, but she was mine. And now I had to face the possibility that she had made a choice that stole someone else's child. By morning, my mind was no clearer, but my decision was made. I needed to know everything. I needed to meet the people I came from. Not because I was ready, I wasn't, but because there was no going back. Miles drove me back to the lab. He was quiet but present. Every time I looked over, he was already looking at me. He didn't ask me if I was sure. He knew. Dr. Arden greeted us again, this time in a smaller room with a large screen mounted on the wall. She sat down across from me and folded her hands. "We've spoken to Monica and Jude," she said. "They were informed of the match. They've asked to speak with you. No pressure. We'll end the call at any time if it becomes too much." I nodded. My hands were cold. I pressed them between my knees to stop the shaking. She clicked a few keys and the screen flickered to life. A woman's face appeared first. Monica. She looked tired but alert, like someone who hadn't slept in years but refused to shut her eyes. Her hair was dark, streaked with gray. Her eyes matched mine exactly. She covered her mouth the second she saw me. Her shoulders trembled and she whispered something I couldn't hear. Then a man appeared behind her. Jude. His jaw clenched the way Miles's had. His eyes were red, but he didn't cry. He just stared, frozen, like he was afraid to blink. Neither of them spoke right away. I didn't either. Then Monica leaned closer, almost like she was trying to touch the screen. "Your eyes," she said softly. "They haven't changed." I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I couldn't tell if I felt like I was floating or drowning. Dr. Arden guided the conversation gently. "Avon, this is Monica and Jude Fenwick. They are your biological parents." Monica wiped her eyes and smiled, even though her hands were shaking. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to see you. I've imagined this moment for so long. And you look just like your grandmother. She was beautiful, too." Jude finally spoke. His voice was quiet but firm. "We don't want to take anything from you. We just want to know you're safe, that you're happy. We've lived in the same house all these years in case you ever came back. We never changed the number, never changed our address. We left the porch light on every night." I didn't know how to respond. I couldn't look away from them, but my heart was pounding. "I'm sorry," I said, though I didn't know who I was apologizing to. "I didn't know. None of this makes sense." Monica nodded. "Of course it doesn't, but we're here, and we're not going anywhere." The call ended after 20 minutes. Dr. Arden asked if I was okay. I nodded, but I wasn't sure. Miles drove us back in silence. When we got home, I found my mom sitting at the kitchen table. She hadn't moved from the night before. The same mug of tea sat untouched beside her. She looked up at me with eyes full of dread. "Did you talk to them?" I nodded. She reached for me. I pulled back. "I need you to tell me everything," I said. "Start from the beginning, no lies." Her hands dropped into her lap. "I never wanted to lie to you," she said. "But I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid someone would come take you away." I sat across from her. My heart was heavy. I was angry, but I also saw how broken she was. She told me everything. About the night they found me, about the note, about the police investigation, about how, over time, the silence made them believe that maybe I was meant to be theirs. "I know it was wrong," she said, "but I couldn't let you go." That night, I wrote in my journal for hours. I didn't know how to forgive yet, but I knew I didn't want to hate her. I also knew that I wanted to know Monica and Jude, not as strangers, but as people who had waited for me, who had never stopped searching. I didn't belong to just one family anymore. I belonged to two, and it was time to stop running from that truth. 2 weeks after the video call, I flew to Nebraska. Monica and Jude had offered to come to me, but I said no. I needed to go there. I needed to see the place where everything started, where everything was taken, and maybe where something could be returned. Miles insisted on driving me to the airport. As we pulled up to the curb, he parked instead of dropping me off. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. "Number? But I'm going." He nodded. "Good. That's what you do when you're scared. You go anyway." He reached into his jacket and handed me a folded paper. "In case you forget who you are." It was a photo of us at age 10 and 6, covered in mud, holding frogs and grinning like lunatics. Mom had taken that photo. I didn't know how to explain to him how much it meant that he saw both sides of me and didn't ask me to choose. When I landed, Monica and Jude were waiting outside baggage claim. They didn't run to me. They didn't cry. They just stood there, cautious, open, and silent, until I walked toward them. Monica stepped forward first. "Hi, Avon," she said. "Or Aria. Or whichever name you want to be called." "Avon is okay," I said. "That's who I've been." She nodded. "It's nice to meet you, Avon." She didn't hug me, neither did Jude. We all seemed to know it was too soon, too fragile. But as we got in the car, I saw Monica's hand reach back from the front seat and rest on the center console, halfway between us. I didn't take it, but I didn't look away. Their home was small and warm, the same address from the case file. Nothing had changed on the outside, and when we stepped inside, it was like stepping into the past. Baby photos lined the mantel. A crib stood boxed in the corner of the guest room, a pink blanket folded carefully on top. Monica saw me looking. We couldn't throw anything out. It felt like if we did, we were saying goodbye, and we never wanted to say goodbye. They made dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup. Apparently, it was my favorite as a baby. I didn't remember it, but I ate it anyway. We sat at the table, talking carefully. They asked about my life, my work, my dog. They laughed at my stories about Miles and my students. I asked them about their lives, too. They were kind, but I could tell they had stayed frozen in time, waiting for a future that never arrived, until now. After dinner, we sat in the living room. The air felt heavier. "There's something we want to show you," Jude said. He pulled out a box and opened it slowly. Inside was the original police report. Newspaper clippings, flyers, the blanket, and the note. I had seen photocopies from the lab, but seeing the real thing was different. The paper was yellowed, worn. One word written in hurried black ink: "Run." "We don't know who wrote it," Monica said. "We never found out, but the police think it was someone who cared, someone who wanted you safe. Maybe the person who took you wasn't the one who left you." I picked up the note and turned it in my hands. My mind raced. Was it my birth mother, a neighbor, someone who saw something and didn't know how to report it? There were no answers in that box, only pieces. But one piece mattered more than any of the rest. Monica pulled out a photograph. It was taken in the hospital the day I was born. Her face was younger, but the shape of it was mine. Her hair curled at the ends just like mine does in the summer. In her arms, a tiny baby, me. My bracelet tag read, "Aria Fenwick, July 24th, 1993. I took the photo. My hand trembled. "You are her," Monica said, not like a revelation, but a truth she had never doubted. We didn't speak after that for a while. The three of us just sat in that quiet room surrounded by nearly 30 years of loss and hope. Finally, I stood. I walked over to Monica, and this time I reached for her. She didn't say anything. She just pulled me into the kind of hug that only a mother could give, tight, full of breath and sorrow and joy all at once. Jude joined us. His arms circled both of us. For a moment, I was in the center of a family I had never known, yet somehow it felt real. It didn't erase the years. It didn't undo the pain, but it created something new, a bridge. That night, before I went to bed, I called my mom. Lyra answered on the second ring. "Hey," I said, "are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, "I think I am." And for the first time in weeks, I meant it. When I came back from Nebraska, nothing looked different, but everything felt different. The walls in my house were the same. My classroom was still covered in solar system models and glitter from a failed science fair experiment. Clover greeted me at the door like always, but I was changed. I wasn't just Avon Blythe anymore. I was also Aria Fenwick, and somehow I had to learn how to live as both. I started therapy a week later. My counselor, Sarah, asked me a question in our first session that caught me off guard. She said, "Who are you if you stop trying to protect everyone else's feelings?" That question stayed with me. For so long, I had worried about hurting my mom, about betraying the people who raised me, about overwhelming the people who waited for me. But I had never stopped to think about what I needed, what I wanted to do with the truth. I kept visiting Monica and Jude. At first, just phone calls and short weekend visits. then longer trips. I walked through the park where they used to take me when I was a baby. I sat in the church pew where they held vigils for me every year on my birthday. I saw the scrapbook they made after every holiday they celebrated without me, always leaving a blank space labeled Aria's page in case I ever came home. It broke my heart and healed it at the same time. I also spent more time with my mom and dad, the parents who found me, who raised me, who loved me even when their love was born in fear. I didn't forgive them overnight. There were things I still questioned, things I struggled to accept, but I could see their pain, and I could see their love. Neither had been fake. One afternoon, I sat in the backyard with my mom. Clover was asleep at our feet, and the wind moved softly through the trees. She looked over at me and said, "Do you hate me?" "No," I said, "but I think I need you to be different now. I need you to stop pretending everything was okay, because it wasn't." She nodded. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "I know, I'm trying." That was enough for me, at least in that moment. Miles stayed my anchor. When things felt too big, he reminded me who I was before any of this. He was the one who joked that he deserved partial credit for solving a 30-year-old mystery by buying me a DNA kit on sale. But the truth is, I had to be the one to open it. I had to be the one willing to see what came next. No one forced me to take that step, and that matters. A few months later, Monica gave me a letter she had written the week after I disappeared. She never sent it. It was folded in the back of a drawer next to hospital bracelets and ultrasound pictures. It said, "If you ever read this, I want you to know that your life matters. Whether you remember me or not, whether you love me or don't, I will always be your mother. You are not lost. You are loved." I cried when I read it. Not because it was perfect, but because it was human. There was no neat ending to this story. No one walked away with every answer. We never found out who left me on that porch. We never learned what happened between the moment I was taken and the moment I arrived in Colorado. Some chapters will always be blank, but not all stories need to be complete to be meaningful. I know who I am now. I'm Avon, I'm Aria, I'm a teacher, a daughter, a sister. I belong to more than one past. I belong to more than one family, and that doesn't make me broken. It makes me whole in a way I never expected. There are still days when the weight of it all catches me by surprise. A familiar song, a scent in the air, a photo tucked in a drawer. But then I remember that I survived a truth bigger than I ever asked for. And instead of letting it crush me, I let it shape me. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone braver than before, someone honest, someone who doesn't run from the truth. And when my students ask where I come from, I smile and say, "That's a long story, but it's a good one." Because it is. Even with the pain, even with the questions, it's a good story, and it's mine. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you. This has been the most personal, disorienting, and strangely beautiful chapter of my life. I shared it because I know there are people out there who feel like something is missing, like there's a question no one is willing to answer. Maybe this gives someone else the courage to start looking. If this story moved you, please like the video. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Drop a comment below. I read everyone, and I'd love to hear from you. And if you want more real stories that go deeper than headlines, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to come, and I'd love to have you here for it. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. Stay brave.